It's certainly been an interesting ride looking into all of Doom's various iterations and designs that vary from game to game. Seeing how the enemies have changed also has shed light on how the games themselves have changed, and how we ended up with the masterpiece that is Doom Eternal today. So, to put a nice blood-soaked bow on everything we've talked about the past couple of weeks concerning Doom's legacy, let's take a look at the graphical evolution of the Cyberdemon, Spider Mastermind, and Arch-Vile from Doom 1 all the way to Doom Eternal. Unlike the Imps, Cacodemons, and Revenants, which are enemies you are likely to run into over and over again in Doom games, the Cyberdemon, Spider Mastermind, and Arch-Vile are extremely powerful enemies that rarely appear, if ever, in any given Doom game. While you could make an argument to prioritize the Imps over the Zombies, the Hell Knights over the Cacodemons, or the Revenants over the Arachnatrons, once one of these guys shows up, dealing with them is pretty much going to be your first priority every time. They are insanely powerful and incredibly dangerous in their own ways, and it won't do you much good to ignore them for very long, as they will not be ignoring you. Firstly, the Cyberdemon shocked anyone who was able to make it far enough in the original Doom to see its introduction. Its stature, its raw power are something to fear and will make even the most confident Doom player's stomach drop upon running into it for the first time. For many, seeing this monster for the first time was a horrible surprise, as the original Doom's manual purposefully doesn't even mention it. The sheer shock of seeing this guy for the first time is unlike most surprises in gaming, at least in the old-school first-person shooter genre. The presentation of its introduction isn't all it's got going for it though. Its design is a sight to behold. While it is ridiculously large, it is coincidingly brimming with little touches and details. Giant hooves for feet, massive horns on his head, a comically large rocket launcher for an arm, and lots of little spots of cybernetic material and torn flesh all over his body. This is one of Doom's most highly detailed enemies as a result, and has changed quite a bit over the years. Another top-tier monster in the original few Doom games is the Spider Mastermind, also known as the Spider-Demon, not to be confused with its much smaller and much more manageable Arachnatrons. The Spider-Demon is, like the Cyberdemon, comically huge and powerful. Roughly the same design as the Arachnatron is present here, but of course much bigger. Also, the chain gun is its main weapon, giving its bullets more speed than the plasma shots of the Arachnatron. Like the Spider-Demon and Cyberdemon, the Arch-Vile is a tough cookie and demands your attention. They are introduced in Doom 2 and can hit you with fire from basically any distance as long as they can see you. They have a rather unnerving look to them in Doom 2, roughly as human-like as an imp, but with more of their insides showing from a lack of skin in their midsection. Their smaller stature and much more human physique might make these guys seem like they'd be easier, but in fact they can often be easily more troublesome than the majority of the other enemies you'll come across. All three of these high-level monsters look roughly the same in the original Doom games. The only one of these three to officially appear in Doom 64 is the aforementioned Cyberdemon. As this game did with most of Doom's returning enemies, it stayed true to the Cyberdemon's core design philosophies, but added some more detail and made it a bit darker. Here, the Cyberdemon sees way more detail with its shading and color gradients, and bigger teeth. It's also a more manageable size this time around, although still towering over most other enemies in the game. It also has a much more elaborate and much more awesome death animation here. While the Spider-Demon continues to warm the bench for Doom 3, the Arch-Vile and Cyberdemon are back in, and with very different styles, as was the case with pretty much everything in Doom 3. The Arch-Viles looked a lot more like imps here, except a little taller and slightly more imposing. The washed-out, gaunt look that Doom 3 gave most of its monsters is in full force here for the Arch-Vile, with the only real source of color coming from the flare that is generated around his hands. Still, lots of nice skeletal and muscular detail did get worked in on this version, and it looks pretty good for what it is. The Cyberdemon, however, has quite a bit going on. The rocket launcher arm and massive stature return, as the Cyberdemon is the final boss in Doom 3. While it is taller than all other enemies in Doom 3, it's still not quite the skyscraper that it was in the original Doom. Even still, all the armor plating, dark red coloration, and high amount of detail in this version makes it more than imposing enough to be a fitting final boss for the game. While the Arch-Vile sits Doom 2016 out, the Cyber and Spider Demons both get their complete modern redesigns that take advantage of modern hardware with super detailed armor, weapons, and much more personality than was ever possible. Here, the Spider Demon's legs, while still cybernetic in nature, are actual legs with claws and muscles. Basically every part of the monster was reimagined. The face is absolutely horrid nightmare fuel. The weaponry is its own brand of plasma shots, as well as lasers that shoot from all sides of him. And his swelling brain seems ready to pop at any moment from all the knowledge in there. Not to be outdone, the Cyber Demon received a similar treatment. While many of his design elements have a similar look to Doom 3's version, here we see a lot more of what made the Cyber Demon such an imposing foe in the original game, with lots of gory details throughout, and plenty of armor protecting about 80% of his body. Much like Doom 3, in Doom Eternal, the Arch-Vile and Cyber Demon are in, and the Spider Mastermind is out. Here, the Cyber Demon looks more like the original than it ever has, with horns facing forward, more exposed flesh, and signs of open gore and cybernetic material here and there. A more animalistic face and teeth are also present in this form. The Arch-Vile perhaps has the biggest shift in design of all three in Doom Eternal, with a large head, spiny armor, and little bits of red-hot flame all around. This is the most recognizable Arch-Vile of all time, as it no longer even remotely resembles the other humanoid enemies in the game. Once you see the Arch-Vile in Doom Eternal, you know who it is. As has always been true with these monster analysis pieces we've done, this close of a look at these monsters sheds light not only on how the creatures have changed, but also on how the series as a whole has changed. Starting out relatively basic and rudimentary in the original games, then moving toward horror and realism to Doom 3, to now taking roughly the same ideas from the originals, but with far more detail and points of articulation that modern hardware can provide. Each Doom game pushes the boundaries of what can be done in multiple ways, so it's hard to imagine where id Software will take these iconic monsters from here, but rest assured, when they do, we'll be ready to dig into them and bring you all the analysis we can. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed and would like to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to ensure you'll be notified when new videos go up.